Okay, thank you. So I come to you here from Cincinnati. I teach at University of Cincinnati on the Blue Ash campus. So let me give you a little idea about what this campus is and what made me interested in doing this classroom research. So University of Cincinnati, Blue Ash, we call it UCBA. It's a community college and students come to us for first 2 years. They can also get an associate's degree or they move on to the main campus, which is in Clifton. And we have a diverse set of students from different cultural backgrounds, economic backgrounds, and educational backgrounds. We have high school graduates, traditional students. We also have adults returning to schools or working professionals, single mothers balancing career versus family. So over the years, I have been observing, I mainly teach pre-medical and pre-engineering students. I teach general chemistry, which is a gateway course, the very first course of its series till they get to med school. So I was very curious to see how their performances is over the 8 years now that I have been teaching this course. And there was always a stark difference between the underrepresented minority first generation students versus the traditional and the mature students. So that caused me to kind of try different pedagogical methods. And recently I came across specifications grading. So the title of my topic, which is balancing rigor, equity, and pedagogy, and specifically using specifications grading. And what is specifications grading? Specifications grading is it focuses on competency-based assessment. So there is a pass or a fail option. There is no partial credit, and students have multiple opportunities to redo an assignment, whether it's a homework or is it a test, whatever the instructor feels. Now, the beauty of specifications grading is you can tailor it to your own classroom, depending on the needs of your classroom or what the majors in your classroom are. So for my spring class, the General Chemistry 2 class for majors that I taught, I decided to create Quest. So it's a combination of a quiz and a test together. And with that, I was able to divide the student learning objectives into two halves. One half, I gave them the traditional grading method, which is where we give partial credit and there is no retake. And it mostly, in my opinion, benefits students, traditional students who have the support system or who are familiar with the academic norms. On the other hand, specifications grading, it does competency-based requirements. So you have to meet a certain percentage. In my class, they have to have an 80% to pass. If they get less than 80%, they fail or they don't pass, and they have an opportunity to retake the assignment again. So for how did that help the students, I'm going to give you a quick preview on the data, then I have more detail in the statistical analysis later. So I noticed that right away students were more engaged. They felt they owned their own scores, and the idea that if they mess up one assessment, they have the opportunity to retake was very reassuring to them. I wish I had that growing up. So I noticed there was a significant increase in the pass rate for the SLOs or student learning objectives that were graded in the traditional method. The passing rate for those topics was about 21% versus more than twice for specs grading. That's the short form. So it kind of gave me the idea that I need to continue this further. So this semester, I'm teaching all specs grading based on the results that I noticed in spring. And this also gives a equity in education. So here, as I mentioned earlier, all students have very clear standards. So that's the key to specs grading. You have to establish the expectations right from the beginning. So students know exactly what they are tested on, how they will be tested on, and what the expectation is. And take away partial credit. So that takes away the advantage for students who are just trying to skid past with partial credit without actually gaining more information, which eventually, especially for pre-med and pre-engineering students, catches up with them. So in this method, which is the competency-based assessment, the tasks were predefined. They knew what their student learning objectives were, which of those would be in the specs grading method, which of those would be in the traditional grading method. And already they were very excited about getting more opportunities. They could resubmit their assignments. And within that, they had to come and discuss with me. So that was kind of a loop. They will not be able to take the assessment again unless they come talk to me. So we would sit and figure out what it is going on. Why did you not pass the first time? Is there something we can change in the way you are studying, or how can I help you do better the second time? So the feedback between these opportunities was very important. So this kind of fosters persistence in students. They want to stick to it. They see, hey, I can try again. Maybe I'll do better. Instead of, you bomb one exam and there goes your letter grade. And for pre-med and pre-engineering students, as you can imagine, that is super important to them. And most of the times, these students are studying for the A grade, not necessarily to understand the concepts, which is very unfortunate. So here, because they had the opportunity to retake, that took away their anxiety. And when the anxiety is gone, they were able to focus on understanding the concept more, which I'm sure they now appreciate or will appreciate in the long run is more useful to them. Because when they take the MCATs, all these topics they will need to be knowing and they'll be tested on. Pedagogical benefits, mastery over partial credit was very important, and students were encouraged to do better and better. So that kind of promoted more long-term retention for them. Giving feedback is an important task. So I made sure using our LMS system, which is the Canvas system, set up meetings with them, gave them written feedback on their quests, and insisted that they come talk to me or go talk to the tutors before they sign up for the next attempt. Where am I? Sorry, just a minute. There we go. So in my class, this is General Chemistry 2 class. This is an advanced chemistry class. It's the second of the set. And I had 34 students, and I divided the SLOs into two halves. So we have 10 student learning objectives. 5 were kept for traditional grading methods and 5 for specs grading. And these were randomly, I just assigned them. There was no clear intention why one or the other. And students took the quest, which is the combination of a test and a quiz under multiple attempts. And in the final exam, I tested them using both the topics, the SLOs that were traditionally graded, as well as the SLOs that were in specs grading. And I did this as a multiple choice question just to be fair and consistent in my grading method as well. So for the final exam, we compared to see in which method they performed better. And here's the results. So students under specs had a mean score of about 35.94 as compared to those in the traditional grading. These are the same students, it's just two different grading methods. And the traditional method was about 26.71. And then further, I analyzed to see what the pass rate and the effectiveness in general is. So you can see that the passing rate is more for the specs grading, 56% versus the traditional grading, which was only 21%. And keeping in mind, these are the same students in the same class, in the same environment. Then further statistical analysis, I did a whole bunch of tests. I did a t-test, p-test, a Cohen's d-test, and I found that the size, effective size, which was 1.26, was very impressive. So typically this indicates that there is a huge impact in the performance or the data. So this was very encouraging for me. And right away, I decided that next time I teach this class, I'm going to let go of the traditional method and incorporate only specs grading. Now, specs grading does have a lot of work for the instructor to begin with, and I decided to teach a flipped classroom just for that, because you can imagine the time it takes to give them the reassessments over and over again. And they had multiple opportunities. So you have to be prepared and keep some time slot aside for them to be assessed. So flipped teaching mode worked for me, where they would come sort of prepared with their notes, and then we would work together in the classroom. And then one day of the week is dedicated for them to take these assessments. So how did this implicate in my teaching methodology? It promoted equity. So whether they were traditional students or they were mature students or they're working students or, coming from more difficult backgrounds, they all felt that they had a fair chance. So it promotes equity, and it does focus on mastery. You have to have a certain criteria met before you can proceed to the next assessment. So that sort of encouraged more learning. They actually cared about understanding more than just memorizing and trying to get that A. It definitely took away anxiety. So having more opportunities took away the anxiety, and less the anxiety, the better the students performed. And feedback. Normally in the traditional methods, you give one exam, they're gone, poof, they don't really, hardly sometimes don't even come for student hours. But now they had to come and talk to me. So that feedback was important to them. And then this was the end of semester. I did a survey for their feedback. This is my own survey apart from what the university gives them. So here you can see that these scores are pretty high. So they felt more confident in the ability to understand the concept. They also found that this was very important to them. The feedback, they still felt that I could do a better job in the feedback. So I have taken that into account going forward and give more feedback than what I thought I was already giving. And the content was very relevant to them. So this was very encouraging, their own feedback apart from their data from the test as well. So this is demonstrating competency. So they have to meet the entire criteria, which emphasizes more understanding. And in general, we're teaching students a growing mindset. So it encourages them to be more persistent, more resilient, and taking away the stress, which I feel was super important. There are challenges like any other system. It does increase the instructor workload. So I did have to put a lot of effort in the beginning of the course and manage their expectations accordingly. Creating multiple revisions of the same quest takes time, and you have to be fair. So it has to be very similar to the previous version that they get. Providing feedback, especially a gateway course like this, which more students takes time to provide feedback. And from students' perspective, they kind of feel a little lost initially because they're not familiar with the specs grading system yet. And the whole pass-fail nature is a little intimidating sometimes. Some students have figured how they can just do homework or get partial graded and get the C- and move on to the next course, which is not what happens in this. So that is a little struggle from the student's point of view. Now, scalability, I've also researched, and I found for larger scales, mine is also a gateway course, but main campus has 1,000 students. So if someone has to apply specs grading to much larger classrooms, Then there are some methods called as token systems that they can use, where students get tokens in the beginning of the semester. So let's say they messed up a particular assignment, they can give in a token and have a retake, and they have limited tokens. So going forward, they know how they need to do. So you can't just try to wing an assignment and hope that you can come back and retake it. And this has been in literature done successfully for large classrooms with about 1,000 students or more. Recommendations, if anyone wants to use this method of grading, design clear specifications, clear expectations, and make sure that students understand what is expected from them. And timely feedback is essential. So they know when they take the next attempt and the next attempt, how can they do better than the previous ones? And the support system is very encouraging to them. So in conclusion, I felt it was a very positive impact. It improved both student mastery and the passing rates, and it promotes equity. Students feel that the system is fair, everyone gets an equal opportunity to succeed. And it is fairly a new method of grading. These are the latest literature. Folks who are working with specification grading in medical field, in nutrition field, in chemistry field as well. And I may have sped through this, but I'm happy to take any questions you have. Thank you so much for your time.